Phew.
Action.
Hello, everyone.
So we looked at some of your stuff. We looked at the urban page, and we looked at a little bit of Instagram, a little bit of Flickr. Just got a sense for the power of the architectural image and the time of day that you did it and the way you framed stuff. So I'm just kind of interested in what your connection is with structure and space and how you bring photography to it, or it to photography.
Yeah. Wow. That is. I guess for me, I've always been interested in architecture as a way that it's a kind of a good indication of how we live in cities. So I think that for me has always been a starting point of just that kind of the way that we live our lives is kind of expressed in the architecture that we build, and also it has an impact on both what we do. It's a container for activity, but it's also a suggestion or a starting point for activity as well. So I guess that was one thing. The other thing I guess I took a lot of inspiration from that modernist moment where architecture, along with graphic design, photography, the new arts, if you want, were seen as ways of being able to express a new way of living. So that was my sort of starting point, and then as I've moved on, I've become more and more interested in that interrelationship of how we build something, and then that then has an impact upon how we live our lives.
So what is the photography connection?
Well, I guess I started out as a photographer before I was interested in architecture, and I guess that for me, I've always had I guess I come from a documentary photographic tradition, and that is for me that point of being able to bring the two together was quite an important moment, I guess. So photography preceded my interest in architecture in a professional way, I guess, or an artistic way. But since I've kind of brought the two together, I see the relationship between my investigation of architectural space or urban space and my picture taking, filmmaking, as a kind of a symbiotic process now.
Do you have any thoughts or questions? What are you taking away from this? So how might mobile movies fit into this?
How do mobile movies relate to it? I think that mobile puts us in a great position to explore space in a way that is much more, I guess, embodied in some ways. For me, and I guess the exciting moment with moving image in architecture, not only mobiles but just film more generally, is that there's a kind of for a long time architecture has been represented through the still photograph, the architectural magazine, the monograph. But I think that there's a real space for moving image generally, but mobile moving image in particular, to be able to kind of add to the critical voice that is out there about the way that we experience spaces and urban spaces.
You've done some. I mean, I know that you did one thing for Mina, right? You've done a number of them. Are they on your website?
They're on Vimeo, so you should be able. If you go to that general davidcowlard.net, there is a link that will take you to my Vimeo site there.
Okay, great. We'll be sure and have a watch.
Yeah.
About the integration of shooting video of structure, or the integration of movement and structure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, I think that in many ways that was one of the things that really excited me about architecture, was that kind of the fact that you are invited to engage with space at the most crucial bodily level. a long time ago when I sort of did a history of art and design degree. We did a visit to a Le Corbusier house in Paris, and I had this experience where a ramp that had simply been put in to move from one floor to another was experienced as something that it was both like a slightly thrilling experience, but also a necessary experience as well to go from one place to another. And I think that if you can bring that into your moving image is a great thing.
Transition or like that.
Yeah, well, even if you think about one of the kind of the major moments of an architectural project is something called the promenade, which is to be able to go from the outside of the building through into the building and then be kind of be taken through it. And I think that's something that has a very direct translation into the way that we move and the way that we kind of encounter space as a bodily person.
Fantastic. Some great food for thought. Any offerings or questions or reflections, guys, for David? What is this doing inside of you? Or do you have any ideas?
I'm kind of interested in hearing from the fact that you've got filmmakers there and dancers. I'm intrigued by that combination, really.
I'm sorry, I was actually addressing them just now, asking about ideas or thoughts or reflections. So, but you couldn't see me, so yeah.
Well, it's interesting thinking about the way that architecture, directs how you experience it. In dancing, it's sort of similar to like being married.
Can you hear her?
Not really, no.
I don't really know.
Oh, no, that's awesome. It's really great. Architecture influences how you experience a space. Is that what you said?
Yeah, like the shape of the building.
Just forward so we can hear you. Sorry.
Hey.
I was just thinking it's interesting, reflecting on what you've said, thinking about the way the architecture or the shape of a building or space directly experiences the way you experience it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In dance is similar in that it's happening, you're making it as you're experiencing it as the dancer, but also the audience. You know, it's kind of like a live
shared experience.
Yeah, like you're making the experience at the same time as experiencing it.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm interested in angles and shadows with like the body's angles and shadows, or contrasting or conflicting that like with the body and shadows. And we're always inside, like most of the time, because it's easier to dance on a flat surface. So we relate, you know, there's like corners that we relate to, there's front, back, side, and we're always relating to the architecture of the space. So I don't know how to like transfer that into a piece of artwork exactly right now. And I've also had, there's like, you know, shadows cast onto architecture directly, or from architecture, like through windows. But then you can have like a moving shadow, so it's like the body's moving shadow is like dispersed onto the static building.
Yeah. Wow, nice.
I did.
Nice. Yeah, thanks.
I think that's really, really interesting, those points about the way that you're kind of taking your key from the kind of surroundings as well as the space. For me, the idea of being able to experience a space through time is really as important as moving through it yourself. You know, so visually looking at something as the day goes by. You know, the idea of chasing the sun in some senses is always really important to me, because I think that as you kind of, you know, you wake up and you sometimes have a good day and sometimes have a bad day. Similarly, that kind of, you know, the sun and the clouds and that interaction of weather to a space really does bring it alive and animate it. And I think that to be able to take your cue for that as a dancer, I think is an amazing moment. What I'm interested in is you said this thing about it's easier to dance on a flat space, which is probably true. I'm not a dancer, but I think that what if that wasn't the case? Wouldn't that introduce an equally an equal challenge to you?
Definitely, yeah.
I kind of talking to Dan last night. There was a documentary made in Britain a while ago now, but it was looking at the whole issue of parkour and free runners, and I think that he's got the link, and I'm sure that he'll pass it on to you. But there's a great moment where people sort of use the city as a kind of as a three-dimensional way of navigating their way through the city, and I think that there's real similarities between that and I guess choreography.
Yeah. Or limiting the space that you have, so you might be elevated on structure, so limited space.
Very interesting. Yeah.
I think the interesting thing is that I guess as dancers you are kind of having to think about an audience, whereas for me I think coming back to that idea about what the specifics of what are the advantages of having a mobile camera with you, and I think that means that you can no longer be restricted to a single point of view for your audience. You can take your audience with you, maybe.
That's interesting. Fantastic. That's so true. For filmmakers as well. You not only have a portable, not only are people connected around the world through their mobiles, so it's like a pocket city. If a city is a collection of people, then you could say it's a non-geographical city. It's an international city, and in the same way, you're taking, as a filmmaker, you're taking your audience with you as you display your stuff on devices as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think there's also that, that ability to put your camera in a position that you would never normally do with something that is bigger and heavier, and also allows people to see spaces in a completely different way.
Fantastic. That's so true. Thank you, David. We actually need to go now because we're just about the end of the session.
Okay.
But this has been really great. I just wonder if anyone else has a question or a thought, particularly film and television people, any kind of ideas about how you might integrate space into a motion work, or not right now? Okay. If you do, let me know, and then I'll pass them on to David. Okay.
Yeah, you can find me. My Twitter handle is @photourbanist, so you can get in touch that way as well.
Yeah. All right, photo. Yes, I like that brand, and you have it all over. And
I do.
All right. Thank you so much, David, for your time and great thoughts, and we'll
Good to see you all.
a bit more.
Good luck with everything. I'd be interested to see that kind of the results of the collaboration between filmmaker and dancer, and vice versa.
We'll send you some links when we get them.
Cool.
Okay.
All right.
Well, bye.
See you
Bye.
later.